Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Good to see you. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Appreciate you guys giving me the time. Thank you if you're watching live, and thank you if you are watching the replay. This again has been, I think it's starting to become therapeutic for me to actually talk about what's been going on in my life and hearing from you guys on how you guys have similar experiences. So it's actually been really good for me to share this. So today, what I wanted to talk about, and just to let you guys know, I'm actually in my son Aiden's room. And you're probably wondering, well, why is she in Aiden's room today? Because today is his story. You're going to hear how he's a strong boy and why we call him that because of what has gone through. So, now, remember yesterday I talked about how the kids were born. We were finally able to have some children. They were in the NICU for 2 weeks. And then finally, we were able to bring them home. And so we're trying to settle into a routine. I'm trying to learn how to breastfeed, but I never had enough milk. So I'm doing both. I'm breastfeeding and also providing Similac, right? Because I couldn't do both I couldn't do one. I think it's because I wasn't drinking enough water, honestly. That's just my problem. And when the kids were about 6 weeks old, we got a call that Tillman's grandfather wasn't doing well in Florida, and they really wanted everyone to come down and see him. And so we were kind of torn. We were like, well, the kids are only 6 weeks old. Should we go down there? We didn't want to fly, so we decided to drive our minivan down there. So we didn't go straight through. We were able to stay with family along the way and drive down to Florida and see his grandfather because we thought this was going to be the last time we were going to see him. And we probably stayed there for about a week, and then came back over the weekend and stayed at my brother-in-law's house in North Carolina. But my son was crying throughout the night. Like he wasn't getting any sleep. He was crying. We were staying up and we were supposed to be getting some rest to get back on the road the next day. And then finally, we're about 5 or 6 hours into the drive when we left the next day. We were just had entered Baltimore, and I remember all of a sudden, like Aiden just stopped crying. And when we looked at him, he looked really pale. He just didn't look right. There was like something wrong. And so I called my dad because my dad lives in Baltimore, and I was like, Dad, something's wrong. What should we do? And my dad's like, go straight to the hospital. I'll meet you over there. So we went to the hospital, and we told them what was happening, and they said, okay, we're going to put him in this machine, which was the MRI machine. And they said, you guys stay right here. We're going to go ahead and do an MRI. And all of a sudden, Aiden threw up uh, blood. And all of a sudden, they rushed us out of the room. Like 7 doctors rushed into the room. We're freaking out. We don't know what's going on. And we knew it was something critical because none of the doctors were looking at any other patients. They were only focused on Aiden at the time, right? So we knew it was critical. And I mean, you guys can imagine as a parent, it's like the most horrifying feeling where you don't know what's happening. You're in limbo. The doctors can't give you any information. And so we're like, we're panicking. We're like, what's going on? And we still have to take care of Layla at the same time. I still have to make sure that she's taken care of and loved and being fed and everything. So I have to stay focused. So they kept coming in and out after about like every hour they would come into the waiting room and let us know what was going on, and it would be bad news every time. They're like, well, we're not sure if he's going to make it through the night. They found out that he went into septic shock, and a lot of people do not survive septic shock. They found out a few more hours later. They were like, we think it's due to bacterial meningitis. We don't know how we caught it, but he was really ill. um, so much so that he had like tubes everywhere, guys. And I took a somehow we had, like, I guess maybe our cell phones at the time allowed us to take pictures then, and we developed them, like, I think probably a long time later, and we found those pictures. And he just looked so, it's like your heart would break if you saw it. He had tubes everywhere. He even had like a central line. They had to drill into his leg to put the IV into the bone marrow. That's how seriously sick he was. He was the sickest kid in the pediatric ICU, where he had to be like right in front of the nurses area so they can keep an eye on him. And we're freaking out. We're crying. We're calling people. We have to pray. and everything. And the doctors just kept trying to tell us, prepare for the worst because he may not survive. So you know what we did? We started praying. Not just praying, we actually called on the prayer warriors. Thanks to my dad. My dad knows a lot of pastors. He knows a lot of people who are in ministry. Tillman called his family and everyone. I'm telling you, everyone was praying for Aiden. And then it wasn't until the morning time that the doctors came in and said they feel like things could be turning for the better. And so I could tell you definitely that prayer does work. Like it was like the longest 24 hours we had ever experienced. Now he wasn't out of the woods because he was in a medically induced coma. So he couldn't talk, he couldn't react, he wasn't doing anything. He was just laying there in this state that we weren't used to seeing him in, right? We weren't sleeping, we were stressed. And it was always like, okay, touch and go. We didn't know what was happening. And so you're probably wondering, so where were we staying? I mean, we had no place to stay, really. Well, we could have stayed with family, but the hospital was so wonderful. They actually put us in a Ronald McDonald House, which was in walking distance to the hospital. So they provided the housing, they provided food. Volunteers would come and cook for all the people who were staying there because they just didn't want people to stress out because they knew that they had a child in the hospital that was going through something. And it was amazing all the things that they did. So while Aiden was in this medically induced coma, he ended up getting hydrocephalus. And for those who don't know, that's a swelling on the brain, and the drainage doesn't go out on its own. So he needed to have surgery to put in what's called the shunt. It's pretty much some tubing that they put in the brain in the back of his head. And the tube goes down the front and drains the extra fluid that won't go away from the brain into the stomach area. But the doctors at the hospital we were at, they didn't have the staff to do it. They didn't have the specialists to do it. So we had to transfer to another hospital in Baltimore where they were able to do that surgery. And after that surgery is and he started to come out of the medication. He actually woke up and he was alert. I actually have a picture of him, of Tillman holding him, and his eyes were looking out, and we hadn't seen his eyes open. It had been weeks already that he was already in this medically induced coma. He actually ended up staying in the hospital for a full month on life support. Okay. And it was crazy. So we went back to the other hospital when things were safe. They let us stay there to monitor him another week. And then we stayed in the Ronald McDonald House one more week just before we got back on the road because we wanted to make sure it was still safe to travel, even though it was only a 3-hour ride to get back to New Jersey. We just wanted to be cautious, and make sure they set up all the doctors that we needed to be setting up with for Aiden when we got back home. So, I mean, let me tell you, we are so grateful to the doctors and the nurses. Some of them we've actually became friends with. We're friends on Facebook. I send them pictures to show how Aiden has progressed since that one, he was only about 6 weeks old when they first saw him. And he got out when he was about 10 weeks old. And for them to see how big he is now, how strong he is, they're always so impressed. And we am forever grateful to the doctors and the nurses for taking care of him. Um, and pretty much this is really just letting you know that we're blessed to have not just Aiden, but Layla as well. And she was such a good baby. Like we didn't have to stress while we are focused on Aiden's health. She was being good and things like that. And what was nice is that even through this traumatic experience, it helped us to realize that family is everything. I know that this experience brought me and my dad closer because, yeah, we would talk to each other once in a while. But from that point on, my dad and I would talk all the time. We had friends and family members come from out of town to see us, to come see who we were. Shout out to Shireen. Shireen came down with her mom from Connecticut, North Carolina. We had family come from New York, um, all over just to make sure that we were okay because they knew that it was draining what we were going through. And it was so happy to have their support. So they helped, to take care of Layla and stuff so we could focus on staying with Aiden and things like that. So it really did give us a new perspective when we go through the McDonald's drive-through and when you see that Ronald McDonald donation box and people think, oh, no one ever uses that. We are witnesses and testimonies that those donations do work. So when you have some spare change and if you see the Ronald McDonald House donation box, put some change in it and think about Aiden and think about, thanks to them, we were able to focus on getting him better, just providing him with love and support, all because of what they were able to do for us and for our family. So I wanted to share that story with you guys today, and we're so grateful for our children. And this is why I'm in Aiden's room today. As you can see, he loves the Marvel comics and stuff like that. And so I said, I think I'm going to record in his room today. So I want to thank you guys for watching live. If you're watching live, put hello in the chat. And if you're watching a replay, I appreciate you as well. And I'm looking forward to coming back tomorrow and talking about, probably maybe we'll transition into some work stuff. Maybe that sounds good. We will go into some work. It won't be as heavy, I know, but it actually does feel good to tell the story and how much this has molded us to be a stronger family, and also to make sure we focus on our kids and giving back to our parents as well. So thank you guys so much. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great night.